Hello and welcome to another AM radio. As you can see, my studio is kind of coming back to how it should be. It'll still be a few days before I get it exactly to full working condition, but at least it's presentable enough to do an audio video version of the show, which I haven't done in a couple of months now. So. Let's get right into it. What I want to talk about is so many things, actually. What I want to start off with today is this Clive Palmer. Whose favorite name is that not to make a joke of? This guy is an Australian so-called self-made politician. I guess people voted for him, so he isn't only self-made, but why anyone voted for him is boggles my mind, really. This guy doesn't know what he wants. I'm not talking as a politician that he doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know what he wants as a human being, and he's proven this many times before. This is a guy who wanted to build the real-life Jurassic Park in Australia. He wanted to clone dinosaurs. He wanted to make a Jurassic Park. He wanted to build the whole Titanic, reconstruction of the Titanic. So many things he wanted to do, yet he failed to deliver. Why he wanted to do those things in the first place remains a mind-boggling mystery to many people. Anyway, he is a politician now. I don't know if this is something also that he just came up with overnight, and is just a phase in his life. That he's going through right now. How long it's going to continue also depends on whether he gets reelected or not. But the reason I have beef with him is because he kind of sold himself to the people being on the conservative side of politics. He has his own party, so it's not like he has allegiance with either the left-wing Labour or the right-wing Liberal Party. But if you had to kind of associate him with either one of those, it would most definitely be that he would be more easily associated with the Liberal Party. And the other day he did agree with Tony Abbott. Apparently they had I don't know how to describe it. It was so awkward when they described it on TV. A meeting where they both smiled. Tony Abbott and Clive Palmer both smiled. Anyway, they came to this conclusion to repeal the carbon tax, but Clive Palmer wouldn't agree to for the first couple of months. He wouldn't agree with Tony Abbott to repeal the carbon tax, so the carbon tax had been staying in place. He, by the way, has the margin. Clive Palmer's party has the holds the balance of power in the Senate in Australia. So, without his consent, basically, Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, can't do anything because any kind of motion that he has won't make it through the upper house without Clive Palmer's assistance. And finally, they came to some sort of amicable agreement to repeal the carbon tax, but not before Tony Abbott promised to Clive Palmer, amongst who knows what other things, that I'm sure have nothing to do with the carbon tax or anything like that. But he promised to, they say, make all the benefits of cutting the tax go to the consumers who were. I guess that makes sense because people had to pay for the tax up until this point. And all the benefits of cutting the carbon tax would have to go back to the consumers. So that's probably the single thing that he said that makes sense. What I don't understand about Clive Palmer, and what I'm sure Al Gore doesn't understand, or Tony Abbott doesn't understand, and I'm not even sure if Clive Palmer understands about himself, is that he involved Al Gore into all this. And Al Gore, as you all know, is the outspoken world-traveling superhero who wants to save the whole world from the imminent destruction brought on by the human population, which is causing global warming. And he's campaigning with Al Gore, going around Australia, campaigning. I don't know what he's doing. But he repealed the carbon tax. Isn't that I mean, kudos to him, I guess. I mean, it's good that he repealed it, but what's he doing with Al Gore? What he's saying? He's fighting for global warming. Like he's a firm believer in global warming. Yet he repealed the carbon tax because he has a lot of businesses that are compromised because of the mining tax. But still, he was giving Tony Abbott a hard time for a couple of months not repealing the carbon tax when he could have much earlier done it. And I guess now he's making amends with making these demands that all the benefits from cutting the carbon tax have to go back to the consumers. But he's the one who's been screwing the consumers over for such a long time, but not allowing the government to repeal it more quickly. And what's he doing with Al Gore? Al Gore is standing there with him on TV, doing some kind of speech, looking really dumbfounded. I'm sure Al Gore wants to do whatever he can to save the planet. That's what he says. He has his own agendas. Of course, it's making him insanely rich. Just going around the world, even if it doesn't make any sense at all. Even if it doesn't make any difference in saving the world whatsoever. Al Gore is going to do whatever it takes to get money in his coffers. And I'm sure he's getting his money's worth for standing next to Clive Palmer, who's a rich freaking mining magnate. So he's standing there, and you can tell from the look on his face, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what Clive Palmer is doing. So this guy, Al Gore, is a huge proponent of global warming, and yet Clive Palmer is there he goes, repeals the carbon tax. And he makes some speech talking about how we should do whatever we can, humanly possible, whatever's humanly possible to save the planet. And Al Gore is kind of quoting along the same lines, but I mean, you could just tell looking at him. What am I doing here? What is this guy really on my side? Is he not? I don't understand. I'm sure many people, including Tony Abbott, with an awkward smile that he's had with Clive Palmer or what have you. I'm sure Clive Palmer doesn't understand what he wants. I mean, it's obvious. Never mind the politics. Leave aside politics for a second. As a human being, he doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know what he's doing. And hopefully that will eventually down the track at some point be reflected in a forthcoming election. He will not be hopefully reelected because if such a willy-nilly flip-flopping kind of guy gets to hold the margin of basically he's the deciding factor in what kind of law goes through or what kind of law gets repealed. For the whole country, he holds the balance of. He and his 2 or 3 men that he's got in his party, he's got a tiny little party, and yet they hold the balance of power. And it's up to this guy, who doesn't know what he wants, to decide how things go. In Australia, for everyone, it's just a scary, scary, scary thing. I hope nothing good for his political career, honestly. And frankly, I don't see how he can hope anything to come off it either. Now I remember just now I mentioned Tony Abbott. Oh man, they had this. I'm not gonna talk about it. I thought I would talk about the Winkgate thing that they had going. Winkgate for winking on radio. It copped so much for that stupid thing. I'm not even gonna talk about. I think I may have talked about it in a previous audio version, but audio podcast that I did. But forget it. It frustrates me how people make such a huge thing out of nothing like that, and it's kind of ironic because I get all fired up about something out of nothing. The reason I get fired up is because people make a huge deal on TV and all that, and all throughout the media. It was in the newspapers, on the radio, on TV, everywhere about how he winked on the radio, and it's just. It's bad enough that it fires them up. It fires me up as well. I mean, but not because that was a bad thing. The bad thing here is that they are supposed to be these respectable media outlets that they're supposed to report on real news, but they don't. They report on crap. They report on people winking. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. What's next on my agenda to talk about? Let's see. Government gives in to Clive Palmer's demands. They already mentioned that. Oh my goodness. There are these pharmacies. And what pharmacies? I don't know. And no one knows. They are prescribing, and it's been an ongoing thing apparently. They've been using uni students to package prescription drugs for sufferers of certain difficult illnesses, apparently, that require a lot of drugs. And they've been having these uni undergrads packaging their drugs, and it's happened repeatedly now for certain pharmacies that they mixed up the drug dosages and killed patients. They killed patients by messing up their drug dosages. What's scary about this is well, that's scary enough, period. But what's even worse is that the government isn't allowing it was reported in a current affair, but they weren't allowed to tell us what pharmacies or pharmacy groups are responsible for these mix-ups, because the government in its infinite wisdom has decided that it is not in the best public interest to worry the public. Excuse me, but if you haven't noticed, but people are actually dying because of this, and you don't want people to know who's responsible. So, they'll keep using the services of these pharmacy groups. I'm sure there's a deeper reason than that it's not in public's interest. It obviously is in the public's best interest to know what pharmacy kills people and what pharmacy doesn't. I'm sure it's in everyone's best interest to know that. The only person whose interest it's not in for people to know that is the pharmacy owners, pharmacy stakeholders. And I'm sure that's the deciding factor in why the government isn't allowing. This is just one of the many examples of suppression of free speech here in Australia that I've talked about many a time. And it just frustrates me. We have so many laws, something like 4 or 5 laws in the books that suppress free speech. So many examples, like Darren Hinch, the radio guy, for mentioning a convicted criminal on air of adult age. He was an adult criminal. It's not like an underage criminal. Common sense says you can. I didn't even know you couldn't say, but a sexual predator, nevertheless, a child rapist, serial child rapist, and actually a couple of them, and he's mentioned their names on the radio, and he went to jail for it. So free speech is so limited and so suppressed, and you have all these anti-discrimination laws and anti-this and that. But when it gets really scary is in a situation like this, where the public are supposed to be informed of what's going on, why people are dropping dead all over the place because of drug mix-ups. No, not allowed to say a word. Not allowed. They can say, how is it in the best interest to panic the public by saying, oh, there are drug suppliers out there who give you the wrong dosage and they kill you. So they go out on TV and they say there are drug companies that kill you. They say this. And however, saying that is in the public interest. Saying that and yet not telling people who does it or where, how to avoid this from happening, that is not in the public interest. But telling them, oh, there's every reason to panic. Oh, by all means, absolutely. People are dying, and they're probably going to continue dying because this is an ongoing thing. And the government investigation into this incident has been going on for years, and the government is confident that the investigation is going to take its full course and it's going to come to the bottom and blah, blah, blah. But it's been going on for a long time, and people have been dying, and nothing is coming of it. And there's no deadline set for the investigation. And who knows when anything, even if anything does come to any sort of a resolution, I'm not even sure that people are going to be informed, or whether it is going to be any kind of a resolution at all. Whether they're just going to come to inconclusive results, or that. I don't know, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that they know what the reason is. What needs to be further investigated? What reason is there to further investigate? I mean, these companies are using undergrad students to package drugs, and they screwed it up, and it's a continuing practice, even though people continue to die. They're still employing these undergrads. Maybe they're not paying them. I don't know. Maybe these undergraduates are doing it as a part of an apprenticeship or for free or training purposes. I don't know, but it obviously has to do with cost savings. And it's okay for the media. The government is more than happy to let the media go on TV, on the radio, newspapers, and say, this is, people are dropping dead because of drug mix-ups and overdoses and all this and that, and you have every reason to panic. Saying that, yet not saying why, who, what, where. So saying you should panic is in the public interest. Telling them specifically how to avoid these companies, what companies are doing it, that is not in the public interest. Go figure. And why? What could be the possible reason for that? The only possible reason for that is because of money. The pharmaceutical companies don't want to get shut down. They don't want people to stop buying their products. It's as simple as that. And they would be cold and dead before they would actually hire someone professional to package their drugs, when they can and still are getting away with having undergrad students do it. So, as long as it's working out for them, doesn't matter that people are dying, they're going to continue doing it. And they pressure the government, it seems, to, the government has its government, well, not this government, but this government is taking advantage of laws that were put in place by previous governments that we have in Australia to suppress free speech. And this government sure as hell isn't doing anything about those laws other than abusing them. They sure as hell aren't repealing those very, very unjust laws. Furthermore, what's worse, they keep restricting speech. They keep restricting banning substances, more and more different substances, banning, raising taxes on tobacco, on alcohol, and they just keep banning and tightening their hold on your money, what you can and can't do, your speech, everything. They're just out of control government. This one and the last one and the one before that, they're all nuts. And, I wish there was a government out there. I wish there was something. I wish that Clive Palmer wasn't the dumbass that he is. I wish there was an alternative to these horrible, horrible governments that we have here in Australia that I could actually support, get behind. There's the Libertarian Party. They're pretty cool in that, they want to... there's a Libertarian Party in Australia just as well as in the U.S., and basically they want to legalize everything that's not a victimless crime, so that you can actually consume whatever substances you want. You can bear arms, self-defense, marijuana's cool, and all that good stuff, and speech and free speech and all that good stuff. So I'm really, I am behind the Libertarian Party, but they're an extremely small party. I think they only hold something like one seat in the state of Victoria, but I'm not sure about those statistics. I'll look it up later, how many seats they exactly hold. But what's for sure is that they're not going to start making a difference anytime soon, because these awful parties, which don't really have anything to really differentiate them, the Labour and the Liberal, two major parties. And even Clive Palmer's party, the ridiculous, should be called the Clown Party. None of them, they don't have any difference between, not one thing between them to differentiate. They're pretty much the same garbage, and all they do is they compromise with even if you have someone who claims to have integrity leading the country, such as how Tony Abbott sold himself before the election, he's going to have to eventually compromise with stupid people like Clive Palmer and the Greens. And eventually it's going to be a very, very watered down result of what was promised before the election, and the result is pretty much going to be the same as what the previous government was doing. So no real difference whatsoever. What we're stuck with is all these bans on this and that. It's easier for the government to ban anything than to legalize it. As soon as the government mentions, let's legalize something or something like that, it's immediately under scrutiny. It's much easier to justify banning something because it's righteous, or because it's holy moly and all that, than it is, you're made out as a kook if you want to legalize marijuana or whatever you want. Anyway, let's see what else I have. I'm watching soccer these days, doing a little bit of punting on it as well, and because of the World Cup. I never do. The only time I ever watch soccer is because of the World Cup, and I've been staying up late and watching until the early hours, if it's a match that I bet on. And I want to suggest, if you're watching the World Cup in Australia as well, I would suggest not to. Yeah, watch it on TV, but what I do is I mute the television, because the commentators that they have, unless it's Les Murray, they're really, really lame commentators, not funny commentators, not interesting, like, say, one line or two lines every minute or so. And what I do is I listen to the radio on SBS radio. That's the one to listen to. I'm not going to talk about this too much, but the SBS radio, the soccer coverage team are right. Definitely do check those out if you watch soccer. And it's really funny to me how Australia lost 3 matches, and neither as convincingly as the last one versus Spain. They blew it. They 3-0 against them. And even in spite of that, everyone, especially this guy, the commentator on SBS TV, what's his name? Craig Foster is his name. So former Socceroo. And especially him. Now, many people are saying, like, they did well, they played well. How can you possibly say that when they... you look at the scores, 9 goals conceded against them, and they only scored, like, something like 2 or 3 goals, something like that, in the whole term. So the goal margin is horrible. And they didn't win a single... They didn't even draw. They just lost all their matches. It's the worst performance I can remember ever for Australia in a World Cup, for any kind of World Cup that they ever qualified for. So it's a pretty appalling show from them. But this guy, Craig Foster, I'm looking at him. I was watching that match, and Spain won, and I expected it from the very beginning. So it was no surprise for me. What's funny about Craig Foster is he was praising them too much. He was every time they kicked an Australian player kicks the ball with all his might from midfield and wings it something like 15 feet out of goal range or something like that. It's unbelievably poor efforts, and he was like, "Way to go! There you go, Socceroos! That's the spirit." My ears were bleeding from this guy always cheering, jumping, cheering on every single stupid play that the Australian team did. And I'm thinking, there must be an agenda to this. And it clicked in my head. I figured, he knows, he's a former Socceroo. He's come of age now, and the team are going to be looking for a new coach to lead him for the next World Cup, and certainly, if not for the upcoming Asia Cup. So, showing his support, overwhelming passion, overwhelming support, go the soccer. He was basically, as a commentator, you're supposed to be impartial, but he was anything but. He was jumping, cheering. It was annoying as hell. For me, I'm cheering for Australia, but it was annoying as hell that someone is cheering for Australia so much, ironically, even though they're performing so poorly. I was ready to yell at the TV, from the frustration, but it made it all the more unbearable, the fact that he was pretending like every single play by the Australian team was brilliant. You couldn't see something such great plays anywhere else, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Now, the reason he was so over-supported was because he wants to be considered for the new as the new coach, for the role of a new coach. Obviously, so his agenda came out pretty quickly and easily. I saw straight through that. Let's see. Lackluster performance in the World Cup. I already talked about that. All right. Speaking of SBS, all right. This is where I really have beef with SBS. I really have beef with SBS on this one. Every time I watch, especially in between games, I don't watch SBS much, but I watch for the soccer. And every commercial break, they have like 5 commercials in every commercial break, and all the commercials are like racism. Everything. Every time you turn on SBS, it's always like ethnic people of ethnic backgrounds, basically saying that how they are discriminated against, and like how they are not proud of being Australian and stuff like that. And this is a station that is, it's not a it would be okay for them to say whatever they want if this was a private station, but this is a government channel, which means we're all paying for SBS with our tax money. Everyone's paying for SBS, and it should be TV for everyone. But I guess if you're not paying that much attention, you may think that SBS is TV for everyone. But I think SBS TV is specifically, well, it is. I mean, you have to have been born from under a rock to not notice that SBS is an ethnic, obviously focused on the ethnic audience. But the way they are impartial, and the way they seem to only support and agree with and promote ethnic cultures, and sort of always kind of take a piss on the Australian white race, how we are insensitive, how we're bigoted, how we're narrow-minded, how we hate everyone. That's always the kind of message that watching SBS, those I wouldn't be caught dead watching one of those programs that they advertise. But from the commercials alone, they piss me off just as much, because we're paying. I'm paying for SBS. Everyone's paying, and yet, you have, like, for example, this Muslim woman in one hand, and she's saying, people think, she's talking something really that really I absolutely hated it. How she said it, the smarmy voice that she used. She said, people. And the conviction in her voice of the stupidity, she said, people think that I'm stupid, that I'm uneducated, she was saying, well, taking a piss, basically, and by people, what people? Muslim? No way. White people. It was what she's implying. People. People. These awful people with their judging eyes. How mean these people. These people. How racist these people are. And mind just for a second what she said. She said, people think I'm stupid. People think I'm uneducated. But, do people say that to her? Do you come up to her, you're stupid and uneducated? No, she's not accusing anyone of saying she's stupid and uneducated. She just assumes that people, and by people, everyone everyone white, basically. So people assume that, think, let alone the fact that she's generalizing people, and in her head, by saying people this, people that, how dare these mean people think, but by saying that alone, she's racist herself, because just generalizing everyone. I sure as hell don't think Muslim women are stupid and uneducated, but with her I would make an exception, because she goes on out on TV and she says, people assume this, people assume. Well, hang on a second. First of all, that's complete rubbish, because I don't, and you can't just say people this, people that. How do you know? Who comes up to you and says you're stupid, you're uneducated? That's bullshit. I bet that doesn't even happen. Second of all, what people think in a certain way, so I hate. Well, wait a second. So since when are people not allowed to think whatever the hell they want? Let's say I think that Muslims are stupid. Let's say I think that she is stupid because she's Muslim and because she's a woman, so she's stupid. Imagine. Let's say I do. I don't think that, but let's say I do. Well, it's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. I'm entitled to having my own opinion. What's her problem then? Why, I'm not allowed to think a certain. If you want me to think differently, all right. And I don't think the way I just quoted, by the way, it was just an example, but I can think whatever the hell I want, and if you want me to think otherwise, you don't force people to think. You don't go on TV and say people are bad, people are mean, people are racist. They think this, they think that. It makes me sick. You don't do that. You persuade people to think differently by not, for number one, the way you can do that is by not saying stupid fucking things like that on TV. People think. Who's gonna think any better of you? Who's gonna change their mind about you completely and think they were wrong, even if they did think like that, even if they were racist? Who's gonna look at you who's gonna like you anymore if you go out on TV and say bad things about people? People are racist. All these people, they think I'm stupid and this and that. I just don't see this as building bridges whatsoever between cultures. I just see it as feeding to the racism. SBS is basically feeding to the racism of the ethnic population of this country. It's not doing anything to alleviate racism problems. Actually, there is no such thing as a racism issue, as far as I know pretty much everyone. A good 80% of people I know were not even born in this country, and from all kinds of backgrounds, Asian, European, African, what have you, all kinds of, and South American, and I wouldn't say that that's the case at all. I would say people are very tolerant. It's seamless. For normal people who are sociable, people who are normal people, people in workplace, people at school, it doesn't cross their mind when they're talking to someone that this person is from another country or something like. It's like it might as well be talking to your cousin. There is no. You don't feel any kind of racism in Australia. I've never experienced anything like that. And I've, people of different ethnic backgrounds have never complained to me about getting any sort of racist vibes in Australia or anything like that. Unlike me, when I was in Japan, I can tell you I did get a lot of that racist vibes over there. But in Australia, it's just not the case. And here come these people. And I'm sure that they didn't go up to SBS. These people who are saying these things on TV, they didn't go up to SBS and say, you know what, I want to complain. I think people are racist. No, SBS went to them. SBS picked out, they said, we have a script. We have this show. We want to make a show about racism. No, SBS has like 597 shows about racism. All the time, 24/7, racism. And it's all about how white people are bad and how ethnic people are fucking brilliant. I mean, that might even be the case that they're fucking brilliant. But generalizing all white Australians is definitely not going to build any bridges. It's not going to, it's just creating a racism problem out of nothing. There wasn't even a racism problem to begin with. Maybe in the 80s or something. Maybe in the 90s or something. I don't know, because I wasn't even here in the 90s. But, what's the point? Even if something did happen in the 90s that was racist, who knows? If it did, why have 787 shows going on SBS 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Why have everything on SBS have to be about racism? And every time it's interviewing some ethnic people about how they feel, can't be, there's this guy, he's saying, I don't feel proud of being in Australia, I don't feel like an Australian, everyone's racist, blah, blah, blah. First of all, that's just him, I don't know anyone like that. They really picked out a black sheep, probably someone who's antisocial, probably some weird people they picked out so that they could get these scoops from them, these stories from them about racism. But it's probably, if they're experiencing some discrimination, it's probably because they themselves as individuals are stupid or weird or awkward, socially awkward or whatever it is. But it's certainly not the case that in Australia people are racist, as in general. And they most certainly make you believe. I mean, they don't fool me. They don't make me believe that. But if you didn't know a thing about Australia and you switched on SBS, let's say you're watching from overseas and you watch SBS, you would see everything is racism, this, racism, that. And you would just have an image that everyone in Australia is racist. really fucking annoys me to no end. I really want them to stop wasting our tax money, my tax money, your tax money, and every white and non-white person's money alike on something that is specifically catered to feed into the this fetish that certain foreign minorities have, certain obviously we're not talking about everyone, we're talking about seriously disturbed people who have a contempt for the rest of the world, and it's feeding into their fetish of this feeling of racism and how white people are trash and all that, and it's apparently it's winning them ratings, I guess, and that's why they have 870 fucking 2 shows every day about racism. That's the only thing that can possibly explain why they're pushing this agenda. With one of the same topic, same. It's everything. Everything is about racism, and the only thing that can explain it is because these kind of programs sell. If it bleeds, it leads, as I forgot his name, famous news guy used to say. So racism, few things bleed, few things other than murder, I guess, bleed more than racism. Pure unadulterated versions of extreme made up racism, or documentaries, documentary upon documentary about documentary on past examples of racism. Even if they're not talking about current racism, they might be talking about past racism, but to what end? There's no, they don't draw a line. They just keep, why is it like we talked about public interest, how the government doesn't remember the story that I started off with, how the pharmaceutical companies are allowed to not that they're allowed, but they get away with giving wrong prescriptions and killing people, and it's not in the public interest. The government says that people know who's doing this, but somehow it's in the public interest that a government TV station that is paid for by every taxpayer is broadcasting all kinds of things about racism and feeding into this fetish of racism that certain idiots have, that is absolutely as far from truth as possible. I don't understand. I really don't. All right, I've been going on for quite a while, and I think I got my point across. So, I would like to thank you for watching my show. Next time I show up, my studio's gonna look a whole lot better, and there's a real surprise coming. As I said in the audio podcast that I did recently, there's a website is coming to AndreMain.com, and I'm not gonna reveal. I'm gonna leave you hanging. There's a surprise coming as well. It's pretty cool. It's a very famous person is gonna be doing my voiceover. I kid you not. That's gonna happen. So definitely stay tuned, and I'll see you next time. All right. All the best, and take care. Have a good one. See you later.